almost 50% of FDA's budget comes from pharmaceutical companies. The people who work at FDA are, their money is coming, their salaries are coming from pharma, half their salaries. So they know who their bosses are, and that means getting those drugs done, getting them out the door and approved as quickly as possible. It's called fast track approval, and they pay 50% of FDA's budget. It goes about 45% actually goes to fast track approval.
Do you think money can buy integrity?
Oh yeah, of course it can. In the yeah, I mean, that's not something that is that is controversial. Of course, it will. So and then
slightly controversial to me. I would like to think that scientists that work
it may
at
not
FDA,
be able to buy your integrity. I'm talking about population wide. I'm not talking about the individual.
but I'd like to believe that scientists. I mean, in general, a career of a scientist is not a very high-paying job. I'd like to believe that people that go into science, that work at FDA, that work at NIH, are doing it for a reason that's not even correlated with money, really.
Yeah. And I think probably that's why they go in there. But scientists are corruptible. And, the way that I can tell you that is that I've brought over 500 lawsuits, and almost all of them involve scientific controversies. And there are scientists on both sides in every one. When we sued Monsanto, there was, on the Monsanto side, there was a Yale scientist, a Stanford scientist, and a Harvard scientist. And on our side, there was a Yale, Stanford, and Harvard scientist. And they were saying exactly the opposite things. In fact, there's a word for those kind of scientists who take money for their opinion, and the word is biostitutes. And they are very, very common. And, and I've been dealing with them my whole career. I think it was Upton Sinclair who said that it's very difficult to persuade a man of a fact if the existence of that fact will diminish his salary. And I think that's true for all of us. If we find a way of reconciling ourselves the things that are to truths that actually, and worldviews that actually benefit our salaries. Now, NIH has probably the worst system, which is that scientists who work for NIH itself, which used to be the premier gold standard scientific agency in the world, everybody looked at NIH and said, today, it's just an incubator for pharmaceutical drugs. And that is that gravity of economic self-interest. Because if NIH itself collects royalties, they have margin rights for the patents on all the drugs that they work on. So with the Moderna vaccine, which they promoted incessantly and aggressively, NIH owned 50% of that vaccine and is making billions and billions of dollars on it. And there are at least four scientists that we know of, and probably at least six at NIH who themselves have margin rights for those patents. So if you are a scientist who work at NIH, you work on a new drug, you then get margin rights and you're entitled to royalties of $150,000 a year forever from that, forever. Your children's children, as long as that product's on the market, you can collect royalties. So you have, the Moderna vaccine is paying for the top people at NIH. Some of the top regulators. It's paying for their boats. It's paying for their mortgages. It's paying for their children's education. And, you have to expect that that in those kind of situations, the regulatory function would be subsumed beneath the mercantile ambitions of the agency itself and the individuals who stand to profit enormously from getting a drug to market. Those guys are paid by us, the taxpayer, to find problems with those drugs before they get to market. But if you know that drug is going to pay for your mortgage, you may overlook a little problem, or even a very big one.